Good morning, I'm George Latimer, Westchester County Executive, and I'm broadcasting live from the rotunda of the Westchester County Board of Legislators here on the 8th floor. I'm here to do my charter responsibility as County Executive to sign a bill into law, but the content of the bill and the accomplishment today really belongs to the Board of Legislators. And I think it's important on process as well as on policy to understand that this country has been set up on a principle, and the principle is that there are equal co-branches of government. We all learned this in 4th grade, and then we promptly forgot it after the test. But we're watching in Washington, D.C. and in Albany, testing that system as to whether or not different branches created with a different intent can function in a coordinated fashion. And I've spent years in this branch of government and in general as a legislator. What we're seeing today is an idea that came from individual legislators who, in representing their district and in wanting to do what they think is right for the county, advanced an idea to their colleagues. Those ideas were debated and discussed in committee, passed through a public hearing process where the public could comment on it, and then ultimately voted on by this particular legislature. And I think it's important for an executive to recognize and appreciate the legislative function of this government. The only way we're going to protect our democracy is when executives and legislators can both understand that they're both necessary as partners in the process. Now, on a future day, they may pass a law that I may veto. They may override the veto that I pass, and that's also part of the process. But today what you have, I believe, is a law that I'm very comfortable in signing into law on a matter of policy, but in terms of how we got to this date, it really is a victory for the legislators involved and the Board of Legislators as a governmental entity. So with that thought in mind, since I'm in his house, let me ask the Chairman of the Board of Legislators, Ben Boykin, to comment, and then some legislators will speak, some advocates will speak, and then I'll do what I was sent here to do. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. County Executive Latimer. For those that don't know me, I'm Ben Boykin, Chair of the Board of Legislators, and this is really a very good day for the health and well-being of the young people of Westchester County. And we're talking about those that are 18, 19, 20, and also for those that are younger than that. And during our committee meetings, time and time again, and during our public hearings, where we had 29 people speaking at that meeting, we heard about the growing use of tobacco and high nicotine vaping products being used by our younger people, high school students, and those that are younger. And so by passing this bill and raising the age to 21, we're hoping that we can deter the use and sale of those products to our younger people. And it is also important that we had such broad support for this bill on both sides of the aisle, and we're very pleased with that. And I want to thank all the legislators that are with us today. I also want to thank Legislator Catherine Borgia, who for years worked to bring this legislation forward and to get it passed. Also, Legislator Mary Jane Shimsky, who you'll hear from shortly, for being a strong advocate for this bill. And also Legislator Catherine Parker, our majority leader, for making sure we got this bill done early in our session. And we're also joined this morning by our Vice Chair of the Board, Legislator Frida Williams, and we're also joined by Legislator Nancy Barr, and we're also joined by Legislator Margaret Kuncio. And I want to thank Legislator Kuncio, who's chair of our board's Public Safety Committee, and Nancy Barr, who's chair of the board's Environment, Health, and Energy Committee, because of their thorough and diligent work in bringing forth all the individuals that needed to come forth and testify, including the young people. And then I've got to thank the law department and our wonderful staff for making sure that we had all the data, all the information that we needed to make an informed decision to get this law and get it passed with wonderful bipartisan support on Monday night. And with that, I'd like to bring up Legislator Mary Jane Shimsky, Chair of the Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Ben, and thank you for coming to our house, George. This is truly a great event, and we're glad to have you. I'd like to also thank my colleague, Catherine Borgia. As Ben pointed out, since 2015, she's been seeking to raise the age for purchasing tobacco products. Originally, the bill was a tobacco 19 bill in an attempt to try to get bipartisan support at that point. However, when it didn't work and we had an election in November that changed the composition of the board and the county executive's office, Catherine and I had a conversation, and I said, why don't we change the 1 to a 2 and a 9 to the 1 and turn it into a tobacco 21 bill? And we should be able to get it done this time. And she did, and we did. And the public health of Westchester County is going to be much improved as a result. Nicotine is a really insidious drug, especially in adolescents and young adults. It compromises the functioning of developing impulse control, of developing executive function, and it makes young people more susceptible to addiction of more serious and more dangerous drugs. And given the opioid epidemic we're going through as a society at this point, we should certainly be mindful of the fact that any gateway drugs should be controlled to the extent possible to protect our young people as they grow into young adults. So this is a really great day. All of the science says that reducing nicotine consumption among young people is a very good thing. The science also says that tobacco 21 will prevent a large number of nicotine addicts from ever occurring. So on that, I can't wait to get the bill signed, but we shall move on now, and we will bring up our next speaker, who is
Maureen Kenny.
Okay. Maureen Kenny will join us. She has been one of the advocates who's been working with us on this issue for years, and I'm glad to see her on the day when our efforts have finally borne fruit. Maureen?
Thank you so much for inviting me here today, and I want to congratulate the legislature and County Executive Latimer for making such a strong statement to the youth of Westchester County that they care about their health and care about their future. I can't applaud you enough for this. On Monday evening, I had the absolute pleasure of sitting in the gallery before the vote came to the floor. And I was sitting with a very energetic and passionate group of youth from Scarsdale High School, Abe, Jake. We had representatives from Armonk High School and also White Plains. And I had the privilege of listening to the stories that the legislators gave before the vote. And it became very clear to me that almost everyone has been touched by some sort of tobacco illness, tobacco disease, or a tobacco-related death, including myself. I lost my father to a tobacco-related illness 9 years ago, and it's a devastating thing to watch. So what's happening here today will prevent kids from ever picking up a cigarette and becoming addicted to nicotine and living with a lifelong addiction that can ultimately lead to death. So again, I want to applaud the legislature for making this very strong statement to youth today. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Jack Waxman. I'm a senior at Scarsdale High School, and before this bill was passed, and really throughout the last year, it's been really bad, in the middle school and in the high school. Kids are getting their hands on these products because, seniors who are 18 can legally buy them, and since these devices are packed with nicotine. It's leading to nicotine addictions. But because of Tobacco 21 in Westchester, I can happily report that that's not going to be a thing anymore. And because of this Tobacco 21 law, we were really looking forward to, paving the way for, the younger generation and 12-year-olds, the 13-year-olds, the 14-year-olds that were maybe thinking of starting using these e-cigarettes. And now this is just putting up a barrier and saying, we want to protect you. This is what's best for you. And I think that this is going to do great things. Like all the legislators said, the science is clear that Tobacco 21 is such a great thing. And speaking as a senior in high school who sees the problem firsthand, all I can say is thank you to my elected officials and to County Executive Latimer for taking the lead on this, because of course in Westchester it's going to do great things, but maybe around in other states and in other counties, they're going to see this and they're going to say, well, Westchester's doing this. Look what's happening there. Why don't we follow suit and protect our kids too? So thank you.
Before I sign the law, just a personal note as well about the content of the bill, and Maureen touched on this, and it's what I was thinking about as I'm standing here listening to all of the effort that went into this and why. I often talk about my roots and my family. My mother, who was really a very terrific woman, blue collar, dropped out of junior high school in those days to go to work during the Depression, picked up smoking at age 13 or 14, and smoked through her late 60s, almost to the age of 70. And we lost her at age 74. And I think about, how much my mother meant to me, how she taught me how to read when I was a little kid. So by the time I got to kindergarten, I was already at first grade reading level, and all the different things that a mother does for a child. Those of you who are mothers know exactly what that is for the children that you've brought into this world. But I think of how she was introduced to tobacco at a young age. So was my father. And my father made the decision to quit when he realized what the potential damage was this when it first came out in the mid-'60s in the Surgeon General's report. We've gone a long period of time knowing what the damage of tobacco products are to the individual. Rockland County, Orange County have moved in this direction already. But there is a natural pressure that comes to young people in their teen years. It's a pressure to be adult before you're quite there yet. And that pressure is in a host of different areas. And one of them in being an adult is what it's like to smoke tobacco products. How cool it looks. Cool is an ancient word, I'm sure. But that pressure was on my generation when we hit those years in the late 60s, and all the years since then. And today and next year and the year after that and the year after that, this pressure will exist in young people societally, even though we know what tobacco can do. It's a legal product. We haven't banned it as a society, so it continues to exist. But the effort to discourage its use is critical. And the reason why is not because of what happens to them when they light up at 14, but what happens when they can't stop lighting up at 55 and 62 and 68, like my mom. When it becomes such an addiction and you can't break it, but the damage you're doing to yourself is so great. So where people might expect that a law may not change human hearts, a law can make it more difficult for that process to start. It can make it more difficult for that process to advance. And some of us may live 40, 50 more years. I don't expect to be one of us. But somebody today is going to find it harder to get the tobacco product because of this law. And because it's harder for them to get it now, somewhere 50 years down the road, when they've aged and they never picked up the habit and they live longer lives, then you will understand why this law was important. And that's why I'm going to sign it into law. I'm sorry, Ken? If you guys want to look up at the camera, feel free.
Are you doing this deal first?
We have the signature by all the various committee members. And sooner or later, there's a signature block for me. This is the 6th day
Yes.
of the month of June.
Yes, it is D-Day. Yep. local law.